Welcome to the Seeing Red podcast with Andi Turner and Garrett Fulce, checking up on Texas policies and politics with some federal issues thrown in, like the assault weapons ban, interest rate hikes, you get it, but it's mostly Texas, since we can't ignore the big stuff either. And now, here are your hosts, Andi Turner and Garrett Fulce.
Hey everybody, we're back at Seeing Red, and thank you all for tuning in again. We are delighted to have you with us. Hey, if you're listening, wherever you're listening to our show, please make sure that you like and subscribe. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/theseeingredpod. You can find us on Twitter at theseeingredpod. Also want to thank the Zipmeister for producing and getting this out the door, and Garrett for doing the editing. God bless your soul. I don't know how you do it, but you can also email us at hosts, that's HOSTS, at seeingredpodcast.com, hosts at seeingredpodcast.com. And I actually got some comments this week, some extra comments, more than we usually get, but I know you did too. So you tell me yours and I'll tell you mine.
So I had my uncle call me to give us a good old thumbs up, so I appreciated that for sure. Said he was in the middle of the episode driving and figured, you know what, I might as well just talk to him, ask him some questions, and he asked me a couple things that we're going to talk about. So I'm looking forward to that. And then also we got a message on the YouTube from a buddy of mine that I've known since high school, and you know he's not a Republican. He's definitely somebody who's on the left, but he had some questions for us. I think we're going to address a little bit later, which I think were valid questions to be asked when it comes to kind of Andi and I's point of view when it comes to the debates we're talking about. But it was just, I want to say thank you to those two folks in particular for reaching out to me, beyond the folks that we've had reach out in the past.
We really take your input seriously, and we really appreciate it. And you know, keep those comments coming, because we improve. Whether you're criticizing something we're doing or you like where we're going with things, you know, we're at episode 11, and I feel like we've gotten better and better as we go. So yeah, I got some feedback too, and it seems like Garrett and we really.
What did you hear? I'm looking forward to hearing.
Somebody I know, Donna, who works in Austin, reached out to me to say that she is really happy with the direction that we're going in. Not that she necessarily agrees with everything we say, but she reached out to say she really liked it. And in case anybody was wondering, yes, my son did listen to the show, and he was cracking up because he knows exactly how his mama feels about everything. So anyway, but we do take this stuff seriously. So please, 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 hosts at seeingredpodcast.com, or if you're on YouTube and you want to drop a comment,
like liking, commenting, subscribing, like every YouTube video will ask for, it's because it helps the algorithm. We're a podcast first, but we want to get this out a little bit to more folks to spread the word.
And we are eventually going to go on camera, so you guys will be stuck looking at us. But we need to get through a few things, not the least of which is a new youngin' in the world, and then we'll worry about that. So actually, Garrett, before we get into the first topic, I do want to talk about one of the things that we heard about this week, and there seems to be some confusion about your stance on the RPT and my stance on the RPT. And so let me just be clear. I am of the opinion that we need to be concentrating on the primary. If we have leadership within the RPT legislature, whatever, let's just call it Republican leadership, and however you got there, you're a leader, right? And you're out there putting up candidates who, you know, might win the primary because, oh, we don't like that guy. He did mean things, and we want to get rid of the incumbent because he did he was mean to our friend. And then you put up a candidate who can't withstand the general. What are you doing, man? You're giving up the seat, or you're risking the seat at the absolute minimum. So people should be concentrated on, did this did this person who was on my ballot and is the incumbent, did they pass most of the laws that I believe in? No candidate is going to be perfect. The only perfect candidate is going to be you. Right? Is going to be you, because you will always agree with yourself. But if we are sitting here and we are seeing it, I saw 7 were put up the other day against House members because they're mad about the impeachment. And look, I understand you're mad and you have a right to feel how you feel, but you're putting those seats at risk. And that's not a good plan. We need to be going after these other seats where we could win. That's where all that energy needs to be going. And it's not. We're just focused on being mad and seeking retribution and fighting amongst ourselves, and I'm sick of it.
There are people in the party who want to burn it down because they want the power that comes with what's been earned by Republicans in Texas. Texas Republicans fought for years to just get their names on the ballot sometimes, and then they fought and they took over a majority and they took over statewide races in the 90s and through 2002. There are people now who just want to co-opt all that work without having to go and form a new party or do anything. And they want to say that, oh, they're the real true fighters, but they are doing everything they can to piss on the legacy of those folks. The folks like the Bush family, like George W. Bush, like George H.W. Bush, who was originally the Harris County GOP chairman and who helped turn Harris County red in the 60s and 70s, became a congressman, one of 2 or 3 from Texas at all, before starting his career in Washington that led to the presidency. You have George W. Bush, who was not the first governor, but he was the governor that really turned the tide and was like the cementing factor in turning Texas red at all versus the progressive Ann Richards. And then you have someone like Karl Rove, who to this day still spends millions of dollars on doing the key things necessary, like IDing voters and turning them out to vote and registering them. The actual things that matter. You're pissing on their legacies and on what they've done to actually get us where we are now by saying somehow they're not conservative enough and that you really know how to do it. You've never turned a state. Very few people have. I haven't. I've been part of some teams that have kind of done it. I can't take credit for it. I was just along for the ride. But that's a whole other ball game. And now you have people coming in and saying, oh, we're real conservatives. And they're moving in to Texas. People are moving into Texas from everywhere. Maryland, California, New York, Washington, wherever. They're moving from liberal states, they're moving from conservative states. And they are looking at Texas, and they're coming to Texas because of the great work-life tax system, the great regulation system, all these things, and then also the fact that we actually have conservative legislators working to get things done on the social issues. So people are moving here, and they get here, and they're like, well, we should do it this way. Well, we don't need to know how you did it. We know how to do it. You know what California has? California has term limits. You know why California is so damn liberal? They have term limits.
So, Garrett, for the record, the comment that we got was that they didn't understand the difference in our opinions on this. And now listening to you, I'm like, you're agreeing with me. Like, you're in total agreement with me. Is that not?
Well, it seems to me that the way I read it whenever I'm editing it, is that you come across more of a we need to come together, and I'm coming across as we got to fight these people because you have to defend yourself. I don't think there's any. I think overall it would be better for the Republican Party to come together now. That's not going to happen because the other side doesn't want it to happen. And I'm not going to sit there and be like just yelling to the void saying, oh, guys, we just got to get along. I'm not going to get along with an arsonist. If you want to burn my house down, there is no compromise. I want to keep my house. So I'm going to fight you tooth and nail and do whatever I can to put you in the dirt before you burn my house down. That's where I stand. And at this point, I feel as if I'm in self-defense mode. And I'd want to do whatever I can to preserve the legacy of what's done and then move on and to keep the fight going. But also, we have to have room in this party for disagreement. And I think one of the things that we're going to disagree on, Andy, is what the governor added to the call. It looks like one of the things Governor Abbott added to the call was effectively a prohibition on private entities mandating vaccines for their employees. Andy, do you want to kind of talk a little bit about where you stand?
Yeah,
and I'll talk about where I'm at?
Here's my thing, and I'm going to say, I'm going to preface my comments with the following. First of all, God bless all the healthcare workers, all of them, up and down the line. You know, they have to deal with this, and I'm just so appreciative of, you know, the work that they do. But I'm going to set aside that industry for the sake of this discussion, okay? Because if you're in healthcare, mandating that you get, for instance, a flu shot would be not unexpected. However, if I am working as, you know, I'm a welder. My boss now comes to me and says, you have to go get a COVID vaccine. Well, hold on a second. You don't require me to get a flu shot, but which can knock you down just as long as COVID, but you're going to require me to take a COVID shot. No. I don't think, if it does not have a direct relationship to the performance of my job, that you don't get to require, and especially just for this particular virus. So, you know, look, we send our kids to school, and whether they're in private school, or charter school, or public school, you know, there are certain inoculations that they have to have. You have to have MMR, you have to have all this other stuff. So, you know, and you know, they're little germ factories. Ask any first-year teacher. They'll tell you, you know, the first year you teach, you're just sick all the time. And then by the third year, you're like pretty well immune to almost everything. But, you know, it's a petri dish in a school. So, but if you're a welder, or you're a banker, or you're I don't know what, but if you're not requiring your employees to get a flu shot, then you cannot then logically say, you have to get a COVID shot. Like, no, you can't do that. And so I'm with Governor Abbott. You can't mandate a COVID shot and especially if you're not mandating anything else health-wise. But it seems to me that you might feel differently about that, because you've been hinting at this.
I absolutely do. Yeah, I don't think that this is going to be good legislation. I don't think there's any way that this is going to be written in which it's going to be good for the people of Texas. But I think this is a good example of particularly how conservatives can come from something with a conservative ideology and come from it from a completely different angle and reach different results with a specific policy outcome. In this instance, this seems to be an example of us having two different sets of priorities on the hierarchy of values, right? And on one case, you have your case, which seems to be of I have bodily autonomy, I have choice with my own body to make my own decisions, and that is fine. And on the other hand, you have another person's right to not engage with somebody they don't want to. And then coupled on my side, you also have an argument for, as a business owner, concerns with legal liability and moral liability for ensuring that I have a safe workplace. When it comes to vaccines generally, though, as a business owner, I have a right to hire people or fire somebody for whatever reason I want to.
In Texas.
If I want to fire you, yeah. If I want to fire you, I can fire you.
Yes.
Not you, you're not my employee. But I have a right to fire anybody for any reason. I have a right to discipline them for any reason. As long as I don't have a specific contract laid out with you, I can fire you for any reason. Any reason. And technically, when the right to work state, the saying is, I can fire you for any reason that isn't illegal. And illegal comes down to discrimination, harassment, whistleblower. There are very specific things laid out. there is a compelling interest from a. There's two compelling business interests. One is you have a compelling interest not to be sued by Andi's coworker because she came in with COVID and got 3 people sick with COVID. Well, now one of those people died and that husband wants to sue. Well, they're not going to sue Andi. They're going to sue the business because the business might have more money. Well, didn't have a policy that didn't say you had to get vaccinated or didn't say you had whatever. You end up having some liability there, and at the very least, you're probably having to pay.
I don't think so. I don't think.
Number two, I have a compelling interest to make sure my people come into the office. If I needed to mandate a flu vaccine because I've had tremendous issues with people being hit by the flu every season, and I can't take that kind of labor attrition, then I should have every damn right to say you have to get a flu vaccine and I'm going to provide it to you, and say, hey, you got to get this flu vaccine or this COVID vaccine or whatever so that I don't lose 20% of my workforce or however many labor hours to that in a given year beyond what I've already budgeted for. I have a right to say, hey, I have to have my own operational control here. And whether I have 50 employees or 5,000 or 50,000 employees, there are numerous business reasons why I would have a policy like that in place beyond being woke. But there are concerns people can have. There are objections I think people should be allowed to avail themselves of. I think that as a business owner who has certain rights in my own right, but also as somebody who looks at what can happen if you come in with COVID and you give it to everybody, and now instead of having a natural rate of 60% vaccinated, I don't have my 90. Well, the vaccine was very good at limiting the severity of COVID. So now when everyone got COVID, they were only out for 2 days instead of 2 weeks. My whole workforce got to come back to work after 3 days instead of after 3 weeks. You know, like that's massive differences when it comes to what I can do and for my business and what they could do. Like this isn't hard math.
Hold on though. The bottom line here is if you're not requiring the flu shot or any other medical of your employees, you cannot say, but you have to go get the COVID shot. No.
Well, that's why I think this whole law is so stupid.
But you can write this law.
It's like
you can write this law exactly that way. If you require,
you could. They're not going to.
I'm saying they could.
Maybe there is one version out there that's actually really carefully tailored. It's Friday. The bills, so when we record this, the bills have only been starting to be released for about 5 hours. When this comes out, the session will have been open for 2 days. We're in a weird time frame whenever I just don't know what's going to be around. What I'll say is this. I don't expect anybody to have any really nuanced, good bill written for this. What I do think is that this issue, from a conservative standpoint, as a business owner and as a person, I have a right to say I don't want to associate with a given person. I can prohibit them from coming into my business or whatever for really any damn reason that isn't specifically prohibited because of race or creed. And that's only because of the historical ramifications and not from the philosophical ramifications. And that's just how the law as it currently states. What I'll say about this issue, though, is it's really stupid because it's all about COVID-19. You either got the vaccine in the first 6 months or you didn't. No one's really coming in afterwards and saying, oh, now I want it. You made your decision then, and now it's just whatever. And you either wanted that job or you didn't. It's a market decision. It's always been a market decision. You don't have a right to your job. We're in a right to work safe. You want a right to your job, form a union. You can still do that in Texas, but to varying success because of how our Constitution's written. You can move to a state where you can join a union and then you know your job is yours. It's a property right. We don't have that in Texas because we're conservatives. So you don't have any right to work for Walmart or Target or Raytheon or Exxon or American Airlines or anybody. That's how our system is written. You don't have a right to your specific job. You just don't. And that's a good thing because it gives you more flexibility to earn the amount that you deserve.
And I would agree with you on that statement, but I will disagree with you that I don't have any problem with them saying in the bill, if you do not require other immunizations for your company, then you cannot single this one out. And I think that's easy.
Okay, so you want to make it even more toothless than the bill will already be. If you pass a COVID vaccine
But
mandate
there are
now in
people who are
2023.
saying, look, it's one of those, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you're going to require immunizations, fine. That is your right as a business owner in Texas, and I don't have a problem with your decision, and your future employees know this going in. But you do not get to single out one thing and say, you have to go get this one thing, when there are certainly other illnesses out there. So you don't get to pick and choose. That's fine.
Yeah, maybe. You might be right. I just don't know if I agree with it. I don't agree with you.
Well,
I just don't.
Ain't the first time.
And that's fine. But I understand where you're coming from. I understand that you're coming this from a conservative angle. And I think that's what's important about this conversation in particular is that I think it's just more of a where in the rank order of priorities you have your competition of rights, which is where the most nasty fights happen on any given issue. It isn't that you don't think somebody has a right to any given thing. It's that you disagree with the order in which those rights should be applied. You have people who want to have autonomy over their body when it comes to a very minor, not even a procedure, taking of medicine, and then you have the right of the public and of a business owner to dictate whom they will deal with on any level, whether it's as an employer or as a provider. So it's similar. I will say this though. I think Kevin McCarthy wishes he had gotten a Matt Gaetz shot because he got taken out and his political life is dead on arrival now. Because Matt Gaetz was able to assemble a ragtag team a la Ocean's 11 style and bring 8 Republicans to join the entire Democratic caucus to oust Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the United States, Speaker of the House for the Congress of the United States. And I gotta tell you, it's really weird to see people on Twitter, Facebook, in real life, who were moaning and complaining about the fact that somehow Dade Phelan is controlled by Democrats when only 5 Texas Republicans or 3 Texas whatever it was, voted against his speakership in the last cycle. But Matt Gaetz got 8 Republicans to oust as speaker, and they're praising him because apparently Kevin McCarthy was, I don't know, bad? I don't know. Andi, what are your thoughts?
So you remember the last, and I'll address the D.C., the congressional speaker first. So you remember what it took to get him in the first place, because the hardcore right will not move. They will not bend. And frankly, Trump getting involved in this at all, I mean, I read several articles where it was like, Trump's being considered for speaker, and I'm like, he's not a congressman. Like, so I guess, Garrett, you're going to have to do a little educating on my behalf here. You don't have to be a congressman to be Speaker of the House?
No, it's a fun fact. It's one of those fun facts that used to pop up at trivia, but that no one ever thought they'd need to know. You do not, in fact, have to be a congressman to be Speaker of the House. What is important about that election is that it is determined by the body. It's not determined by the people. It's determined by the body because it's a legislative body. And there is no requirement within their bylaws that the Speaker of the House is merely selected, and the roles, duties, and how they have to perform their duties are also prescribed by the body itself. The legislature determines its own rules, basically, is what it says. Now, so historically, I feel like I would know this if there was, because I'm a big fan of quirky, things that have come out of left field. I do not believe in U.S. history that anybody ever elected to the role of Speaker of the House has ever been outside of the Speaker of the House. So it would be far outside of the norms to elect President Trump. And as of this recording, President Trump has thrown his support behind Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio. And there's contention around how that happened. My congressperson, Troy Nehls, seems to have
spilled the beans.
Both started the ball rolling and also stopped the ball rolling at times in which was not conducive to what Team Trump wanted. And you hate to see it. You hate to see a good media savvy congressperson really drop the ball like that. I hate to see it as a constituent. I hate it. I hate seeing my representative embarrass himself on a national scale.
So speaking of speakers, we're going to go into special session, and with all this stupid retribution, and we gotta punish people because even though I still have legal trials coming up, we have to punish these people now. So Speaker Dade Phelan, theoretically they may try to replace him. I don't know that their votes are there for this, because the House decided what they decided with the impeachment, and I don't see people who voted for the impeachment turning to Dade Phelan and saying, "Yeah, we want you out." I mean,
well, it's a big difference in the calculus, right? Because one of the things Kevin McCarthy agreed to in his compromise for taking the speakership last January was that in order to call your privileged vote to what they call vacate the chair, which is the first vote, there's a vote effectively to remove the current person, and then you have a vote on who should replace them, which we're in the middle of that process on the U.S. House. And in the U.S. House, it only required, I believe, the person making the motion in 1 second, which is like the minimum standard for anything in parliamentary procedure. You have one person make a motion and somebody who seconds it who also agrees with it, right? And it goes into the record. So basically, it requires two people to bring something to a vote on that particular issue. In the Texas House, it requires one person to bring the motion, and a second as well, most likely. The interesting quirk is one person to make the motion. The chair, in their purview, given their rights, can then say that I don't recognize the motion. At that point, it takes 76 signed signatures, not just seconds, but signed seconds, basically, including the person who made the motion, to then bring that to force a vote on the recognition of whether or not the speaker did something right.
I mean, Garrett, as somebody who has been the president of the Republican Club in a very liberal area, been the chairman of the Republican County Committee, I've led a bunch of groups doing a bunch of things, doing a bunch of right-of-center things, various right-of-center things. And I'm going to tell you, when I knew that guy sitting in the third row had a motion that was contrary to, smaller, more efficient government and less taxes, I just didn't call on him. I literally, did not recognize him to speak. And if I were the speaker, I might not do that. I might not recognize that person to speak. And then, they can get somebody else. But I mean, as we discussed with Jerry Patterson a couple weeks ago, the House and the Senate are like small communities. And so, they have their friends who they hang out with and they go to dinner with or whatever. And, they generally agree on things, but it's still a community, right? So these 5 people might hang out together and agree on things. And then there's another group, and, it might even be that there are some Democrats hanging out with some Republicans. This is not unusual. My point is, it's a very small community. And if I were Speaker Phelan, one of the strategies that I would seriously consider, because the governor has laid out what he wants done, is I would not entertain anybody I knew that was going to come forward with that motion. Anyway, so there we are for the week. We hate to cut it off because we could go on for days about all of this. And, don't be surprised if we don't pick it up again. But we want to thank you all for tuning in, for episode 11. We really appreciate you. Do let us know what you think, what you liked, what you didn't like. And tell your friends to like and subscribe. So, anyway, we will
share it, post it, repost, reshare.
Yeah, post it anywhere you want to post it. We want to hear the comments. And if you've got friends who are like bringing up questions, let us know. That's fine. But we want to thank you for joining us this week. And we will see you next week. Thanks so much, y'all.
Bye, guys.
You've been listening to the See in Red podcast. It's always Texas politics and beyond. We present the facts and opinions. The See in Red podcast with your host, Andi Turner and Garrett Fulce. Thank you, and tune in next week. And please do us a favor. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode.